So, for the last 4 years, I've been coming to the Emirates and listening to Gary Breen bemoaning the decline of Arsenal from the high standards that they set in the first few years under Arsene Wenger. Wenger is gone, Unai Emery is in. They've just won 4 games in a row in the Premier League, a 2-0 victory against Everton. Have you seen signs of a change at this club?
Oh, there's definitely changes happening with Emery in terms of his philosophies. There's definitely a massive improvement defensively without the ball in terms of work, effort, endeavour. But it's a work in progress. There's a long way to go. I think Torreira today making his first start makes a massive difference. That's something to build on. Not the biggest midfielder, but has real presence in there, and that's exactly what Arsenal need. He dovetails really well with Xhaka. Xhaka's qualities, as we all know, are going forward, making those passes into the final third, of which he's probably one of the best in the Premier League. His stats suggest that. But out of possession, so vulnerable, and Torreira read the situation really well. So, listen, there's a lot of positives, but as we heard a lot of Arsenal supporters just say as we were coming down here, the jury is still out and there's a lot of work still to be done.
You were raving about Lucas Torreira ahead of the game, and he delivered and he lived up to the hype. For anyone who hasn't seen a huge amount of him, what's he about?
Well, he's about midfield discipline, and that's what Arsenal have been crying out for so long. He stays in that central area, reads the situation well. He's not the biggest, but he anticipates what's happening around him, so gets into good early positions, and that's what Arsenal have been crying out for. And you're quite right. We're talking about an Arsenal midfield that you're judged on the likes of Vieira, Petit. We're talking about World Cup winners there, so that's a high benchmark, but that's what Arsenal supporters wanted to see, the next generation of that type of midfielder. And so often in the transfer market, Arsene Wenger wasn't able to do it. Emery looks like he might have solved one of their biggest problems already.
The goals today were scored by Alexandre Lacazette and Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang. I think that's 10 in 11 for Aubameyang here at the Emirates. They both look like they're going to score goals. Are they going to score enough goals to get Arsenal into contention for a Champions League place?
They'll score goals, there's no doubt. I think they like playing together. The very fact that Aubameyang's happy to be pushed out to that left wing, for a centre forward of his quality, you'd think he'd have star billion, but Lacazette has come in. Aubameyang's always going to make those out to him from the outside in runs and get his goals. They will score goals, but they have got such frailties at the back still, and it's not just personnel. I talked about Emery and how hard they work out of possession. That high defensive line is too easy to play against. You just have to turn those centre-halves, Mustafi, Socrates, who are not comfortable being turned. And obviously they want to continue to play out from the back from their goalkeeper, who actually just can't do it. He's a Premier League icon, he's a brilliant goalkeeper, and he proved that today. With his hands, he's still one of the best. With his feet, nowhere near good enough.
He made some very important saves, Petr Cech, today. Everton did create chances, but it's now just one win from their opening 6 games of the season after another summer of massive investment. Where are they going? What is going to happen with Everton this season?
I think Silva's going to be under increased scrutiny now. There's no doubt about it. They made a big play for him initially to get him from Watford. That didn't quite happen the way they would like it. Then Big Sam comes in, settles the ship, and they needed that because they genuinely looked like they were in danger of relegation. So Big Sam's moved on. He obviously didn't take to the supporters, they didn't take to him. Silva comes in, a lot of optimism, started the season particularly well. But now, as you quite rightly said, the run they're on, there's questions asked. Because I'm looking at that team there, and they've got a lot of options, but they don't know, and they certainly don't look like they know what they're doing.
I'm going to throw one at you, and you're going to raise your eyes to heaven.
Here we go.
Your former manager, Mick McCarthy, was being interviewed by Eamon Dunphy on Friday night, and you'll never guess what came up in the conversation.
Right.
So he was asked, would Ireland have done better at the World Cup if Roy Keane wasn't there? He said that he spoke to Alex Ferguson, who felt Ireland would have got to a semi-final if Roy Keane
was there.
Alex Ferguson feels that Ireland would have got to a semi-final if Roy Keane had stayed. Mick McCarthy feels Ireland may not have got out of the group if Roy Keane had stayed.
Really?
What do you think?
Well, no, listen, I'm very surprised Mick said that, because how can you say that about a midfielder who was arguably the best in the world at that time?
I guess his point is that the attitude Roy brought with him to that World Cup meant he was going to be such a destabilising presence in the dressing room. You wouldn't have got the performances you might have got out of yourself, out of Mark Kinsella, out of Matt Holland.
Yeah, listen, I can understand that argument. I don't agree with it, because I don't think that there was anything going into the tournament, or certainly throughout the qualifying campaign. Listen, we knew that they weren't particularly good friends and they were able to keep a lid on it, but it escalated in Saipan, and that's why. But there's no reason to suggest that Roy was going to go off on a tangent and every time we had a game as such. I wouldn't have thought that. But taking enough away from Matt Holland and Mark Kinsella, are brilliant in central midfield. Lee Carty was ready to step in as well, but I'm not convinced we would have been a better team without Roy Keane. What team would?
16 years on, have you ever gone through a week without being asked a question about Saipan?
Well, no, do you know what? I don't mind being asked the question, because I read all the lads' books, and sometimes when I read the stories and their interpretation of what happened, I don't even remember being there.
Name names.
All the books, all the lads have got books out and their take on it, and I'm reading it thinking, did that actually happen? I'm not convinced.
All right. We'll have to come back to that, I think. There's a little story in there somewhere. Gary, great stuff. We'll talk to you again soon.
Pleasure.